What's up YouTube? Today I want to create a kick drum sound using a tennis ball. So this is a pretty weird request, but I thought it was pretty cool. It's something that actually was asked in the chat of one of my recent streams. I do forget which one of you guys actually asked for this request, but anyway, I thought it would be pretty fun to dive into, and you guys seem to enjoy this kind of more experimental sound design type of stuff. So let's dive into creating a kick drum with a tennis ball. So what I did is I used my Zoom recorder and threw the tennis ball against a bunch of different surfaces in my house, and these are the resulting recordings. So the first two were like wooden surfaces, and this one was a tile surface. You can actually hear there's a bit of that kind of like high frequency kind of reverb sound. I think this is going to be pretty interesting to create like a more bouncy kind of effect. But what I want to do is let's just deal with how we would look at how we would deal with these samples in terms of the stereo and that kind of thing. So because of obviously the Zoom is a stereo recorder, we've got some difference between the left and the right channels. As you can hear, I believe that there's more activity happening on the right hand side. Let's look at how we would deal with processing these into a kind of more mono-compatible sound. Chop them a bit smaller to make things a bit more sensible over here. What I want to do is I just want to put on a plugin that's going to allow us to isolate the left and right channels and have a listen to which one we think's going to suit this context the best. So it seems because of the way I've recorded the sound, the right-hand side seems to be a more direct signal, while the left-hand side seems to have captured more of that kind of room sound. Obviously, because of the way that my Zoom recorder is set up, it's kind of like what they call a XY, I think, pattern. You get this kind of like differences when you record these types of sounds sometimes. So I'm going to take this into account. I'm going to isolate just the right-hand channel and process these audio files. So I'm just going to reset this plugin real quick. We can actually disable it because we don't need it anymore. And I'm going to go in here. I'm going to click on, select all these samples, right-click on it, process, and then we want to go to stereo flip. We can click here, right to stereo, and then process, apply. So what this does is it basically takes the right-hand channel and puts it into both the right and the left channel. So we have a exactly phase coherent mono-compatible sound. Nice and clean, and it sounds like there's a little bit less of that kind of like room noise going on. So what we can do here is we can actually boost this the waveform substantially, and we'll be able to see here, you know, where the kind of like sound ends and where the room noise kind of begins. You know, it starts to get more kind of complex, if that makes sense. So here you've got like chunky waveforms, and then when it gets more spiky, then you know, okay, let's chop this off. What we can do here is we can also snap to zero crossing, just so that when we move this audio file, it's always going to be at a zero crossing point, and we can fade out a little bit like this. So let's do it with this one as well. Snap to the nearest zero crossing, just to make it a bit cleaner. And then this one as well. Perfect. So now the idea is we export these out, and then we can load them into a synthesizer. I think I'm going to go with Phaseplant for this example, and we can create some kick drums. Okay, I've loaded up a blank instance of Phaseplant, and I've put in a 4/4 progression over here. And so let's dive in and start creating the sound. So just straight off the bat, I probably want to create a separate group, just because I know I'm probably going to want to have like a synthesizer layer as well as a kind of the sampler layer, which is the sample that we recorded. So let's add in a sampler here. We can go through to the samples folder and actually find which one. I believe I put it into my Foley percussions tennis ball on. Let's just start with the wood, and let's just see if we play this, what we've got so far. The tennis ball on tiles kind of sounds a little bit cleaner. So let's go with this one. What we can do is we can create another layer over here with a analog sine wave. So this we're going to use to kind of create the body of the sound. What I've done here is I've actually got Oscillos Megascope loaded on the channel, and I've got this is another kick that I've made before in Vital, and I'm going to compare while I'm creating this kick so I can get a kind of similar waveform, similar sort of timing. I find using an oscilloscope is a very, very accurate way of getting a nice solid kick drum. So what we can do is we can actually tune this down a little bit to the key of the track. So let's turn this down to G. And what I want to do here is I actually want to jump up and let's tell Phaseplant that the sample is a G so that it doesn't transpose it. It doesn't pitch shift it when we change the key. But it's going to pitch shift the body layer. So what's happening is the sine, the kind of like body fundamental tone layer, is overlaying over this waveform of the actual sample, and so you can see it's creating this kind of peak, whereas here in the reference we kind of want a more rounded sort of beginning on the sound. So we can dive into this attack and a little bit of delay settings on the amplitude envelope of the sine layer. Let's actually go ahead and we can name these body transient. We may want to create another layer, a sine layer, which we can use as like another transient layer, which we can kind of pitch shift just to add a little bit more energy. But let's see how we go with the envelopes over here for now. So what we can do here is we can actually process the layers with separate chains of effects. So here with the body, let's send this to layer 3, let's send this to layer 1. We're going to create another transient layer over here, but let's just remove the sampler for now and call this layer lane 2. We want to set all of these effects lanes to send out to the master. So here on the lane 1, which is the sample layer, let's add some processing here, maybe compressor to boost some of that mid sort of tone that's happening, and to cut out some of that like really harsh attack. So notice here how the sample has a bit of kind of DC offset. It peaks higher on one side of the polarity than it does on the other side, and you can actually use a distortion module inside Phaseplant's generator section to change the bias so that you don't have as much of that offset. See, we've kind of shifted that DC so that it's kind of more even on both sides. So here what we can do is we can further process this with something like a limiter, just to kind of like really squeeze that top end. So let's create our synth transient layer. What we can do is we can add in an analog, turn it to sine wave. Let's just turn the gain down quite a bit because it's going to be pretty loud. This one we want to turn down 2 octaves so it ends at the same pitch as the beginning one. We can draw in a custom LFO over here, turn it to one shot retrigger mode, and then we're going to want to draw in our curve like this. But let's just get to that by setting this to unipolar and then setting the output of this to modulate the semi by 24. Okay, so then let's fine-tune the envelope of this second transient layer. Can maybe gain it up a little bit, and then fine-tune this LFO that we made as well. We can maybe get it to send more of the LFO through. Let's try 4 octaves. And so I just put a bit of EQ, and then we can put in a bit of like fine-tuning amp envelopes, just to kind of like cut out sound where I think it kind of like it needs to be a little bit cleaner. So for example, how we do this is we can turn the gain down and then modulate this by, let's say, I think it was about 45% or so. And then we can give the body layer also a little bit of the same pitch envelope. Cool, that sounds good. And then let's see how it sounds when we swap this out for some of these other samples. That's quite a nice one as well. It's got like a woody tone to it. Awesome, that's about it for today, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, I'm going to be posting these faceplant presets to my Patreon for all my $5 supporters. So if you want to know what that's all about, check out the link in the description. And yeah, if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to this channel. And yeah, hit that like button. See you guys next time. Cheers.